Om. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमु रामाय तस्मै नमः रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्. Hari Om everyone. In the last session we had seen the power of Maya Shakti. What does it do inside and what does it do outside? Inside it hides the difference between Sakshi and Buddhi. And outside it hides the difference between Brahma, consciousness, and the world, the names and forms. So it's a helpful way to think about it. And later on, Vidyaranya Swamiji will bring this topic back when it comes to meditation. He says meditation can be done inside, it can be done outside also. So that way he will connect it later. This is the shloka that we were seeing. Now every shloka that is going to come is an elaboration of what we are experiencing day in and day out, so that we can get clarity but shift our attention to something which is beyond what we just see with our eyes. So this shloka is the definition of Vyavaharika Jiva. Transactional, in the transactional plane, what do we call as Jiva? Okay, a very beautiful definition. Sakshinah purato bhati lingam dehena sanyutam chitichhaya samaveshat jivasyad vyavaharikah. Sakshinah purato bhati means whatever we are going to talk about is illumined by the Sakshi. Sakshi doesn't have any kind of birth or change or decay or death, because we said it is that which does not, which is unborn, it is ever existent. Fifth verse, no deti nastametyesha. Na udeti doesn't, is not born. Na astameti does not die. So whatever we are speaking about Jiva, everything is illumined by the Sakshi. Means first what has to come is Sakshi, and then we can speak of anything else. So Sakshinaha purato bhati lingam dehena sanyutam. What is there in front of Sakshi? In front means, you just understand, after Sakshi. All these words, sometimes they're confusing even more. They are appearing in Sakshi. It is just to say that Sakshi also is not created, like all this Linga Sharira, etc. Lingam Dehena Sanyutam. So first entity is Sakshi. Second is Linga Sharira, what we called as Buddhi. And physical body is also there. Chitichaya samaveshat jivasyad vyavaharikah. Now, all of these, along with that reflected consciousness, is called as vyavaharika jiva. This is the literal translation. We'll see a little bit more here. So, sakshinaha purato bhati. So, first thing which is there is sakshi. After that, Vidyaranya Swamiji says what comes is this linga sharira. Lingam dehena sanyutam. Now, linga sharira, when we say, we have to always understand it is along with reflected consciousness. Okay, chitit chaya samavesha. The second line says this linga sharira or buddhi is along with reflected consciousness. And when deha word is used, we should understand it is referring to gross body also. Sometimes it is called a subtle body, right? Linga sharira we say. But sthula sharira means gross body. So that also is included in definition of jiva. Okay, sakshinaha purato bhati. Lingam means that buddhi. Dehena sanyutam. Physical body is also there. But buddhi cannot be without reflected consciousness. Whenever there is a medium, reflection will automatically happen. This we saw before also, right? If you keep a pot outside with water, the medium is available, reflection will automatically happen. But when both gross body and subtle body is there, we should always understand that causal body is also there. Causal body is like a blueprint which has all the vasanas, which has all the things that will store, what has to come out for this in this subtle body and gross body. That is called as causal body, but it is not another body. Just like we have a physical body, we should not try to imagine causal body as something else. It is just a word that is used because we say it is sharira. Sharira traya, that is the word that is used. So causal body is the third one. All of this together is called as jiva. Means if you take out one, then that jiva will not find its completion. So if you take out physical body, then this jiva, whatever it has to accomplish, it will not be able to accomplish without having a physical body. There are many things we can discuss, but they are discussed in other texts, so I'm trying not to go too much into them. But for now, what we need to get from this particular shloka is that whenever we hear the word jiva, or whenever we think about ourselves, jiva, we can start from here only. When we start our spiritual journey, we might just be familiar with this physical body. When I say I, what I mean by I is only this physical body. I don't know that there are other things which are existing. Then Vedanta comes and says, we don't only have a physical body, we also have something called as a subtle body, which is this ahankara and antahkarana. Means thoughts which are there, different thoughts which go. And there is somebody who is controlling these thoughts. That controller is ahankara. And how can an effect come without a cause? You see variety in subtle body, you see variety in gross body also. That storage of all the blueprint is called as the causal body. And this causal body alone is avidya rupa. Because I don't know myself as consciousness, that ignorance is called as causal body. What we discussed as Maya. In many texts, Maya and avidya, they are taken as same. And it's indescribable. How can ignorance store all this blueprint? Like that, if we go to inquire, we will never, move forward. So the point is to say, we are seeing the effect, there has to be a cause, and that cause is this causal body. But most important point is that when we say the word jiva, it is this entire assembly together that forms a jiva. What is jivatva? There is something, jivatva means sense of individuality. Jiva is this, entity together, but this entity now has a sense of individuality that is called as jivatva. Sakshi is who we are, right? That is our true nature. Not knowing that, we have taken ourselves to be something limited. That is called as jivatva. And the good news is, we have actually not become limited. It is only a notion. So knowledge will come and just take away that notion, and through knowledge only, we will abide in our own true nature as Sakshi, as consciousness. This is the main thought process in Advaita Vedanta. Actually, if Sakshi has become Jiva, then no matter how much you try, you cannot say that just by knowing, I will gain my true nature. Just like milk becoming yogurt. Once it has become yogurt, then just by knowing, you cannot get back the milk. And sometimes that process is irreversible. But if there is a rope appearing as snake, then just by knowing, you can get back the rope, because that rope has not actually become the snake. This is the main point that will come later also. All the limitations that are there in this jiva, those limitations come from physical body, subtle body, and causal body. Generally, we don't have too many problems with. That is of the nature of ignorance. So that is the seed of all problems. That is how we can say. But all the limitations, they don't belong to me. They belong to these things which are appearing in me. Subtle body, mind, ahankara. In deep sleep, when mind is not there, none of those limitations are there. So how can I, as consciousness, have any of these limitations? So that is one of the main point. And this thought, Vidyaranya Swamiji is going to elaborate now more. Okay, what is this? What happens now? You said jiva, you defined it in this way. And you also said there is some sakshi, and there is everything else which is an appearance, means it is unreal. So the question becomes now, who is this person who is getting liberated? Physical body is inert. That doesn't need liberation. And you said it's anyway an appearance. Then how can something which is appearing seek liberation? And Sakshi is ever free. Sakshi is of the nature of consciousness. There is no bondage in Sakshi. So how can you say that Sakshi is seeking liberation? Who is this person seeking liberation? And what is the purpose of studying Vedanta? What is the nature of liberation? That is given in the next verse. Asya jivattvamaropat sakshinyapyavabhasate avrutau tu vinashtayam bhede bhate payati tat asya jivattvamaropat sakshinyapyavabhasate avrutau tu vinashtayam bhede bhate payati tat. What is happening is, Vidyaranya Swamiji says, that this jiva which is there and jivatva, that is why we discussed both words, sense of finitude is getting superimposed on Sakshi. Asya jivatvam sakshini api avabhasate. In Sakshi also, I start seeing the qualities which are belonging to this anatma or jiva. Avrutau tu vinashtayam bhede bhate apayati tat. But when this avarana is removed, when this ignorance is removed, this difference is clearly seen. Difference between what? Difference between Sakshi and difference between Sakshi and Buddhi. You know, Drigdrsha Viveka's style of analyzing is beautiful. It does not directly say Sakshi and Deha, because Deha Tadatmya is only through Ahankara. Ahankarasya Tadatmyam Chichaya Deha Sakshibihi. That verse we saw earlier, right? Ahankara has Karmajanya Tadatmya with body. So if we can take care of Ahankara at the root, everything else is taken care of. That is why we discuss mainly between Sakshi and Ahankara. Now, what is the problem inside? Problem inside is Jivatva is getting mixed up with Sakshi. Asya Jivatvam aropat Sakshini api avabhasate. How is it happening? Now, whatever is there in this Jiva, right? One entity of Jiva, whatever it says, that is taken up by Sakshi, or that is getting mixed up with Sakshi. Now I say, I am tall, I am short. That is Deha Dharma. That is the nature of body. But I end up mixing up with Sakshi. Means when I say I don't feel that I am this pure consciousness which is a witness of tallness of this body. And actually speaking, there is only one entity here, right? In this entire equation, only Sakshi is real, everything else is an appearance. And if I say I am tall, the question should be, how can I be tall? Means really speaking, consciousness has no dimension. There no, height and nothing can come in. But this statement is a very innocent statement. I am tall. We feel what is a big deal. But if some criticism comes to this body, some praise comes to this body, I start feeling this is my praise. That is where Vedanta says problem will come. That what is not my dharma, if I have taken up, then that dharma will become cause of bondage. Now at level of mind also, what are the different titles that come generally? I am a calm person. Right now I am a very agitated person. Sometimes it could be with intellect also. I am a very intelligent person, or I don't understand things so well. This also gets superimposed on Sakshi. That Sakshi which is of the nature of knowledge itself, that Sakshi is saying, I am ignorant about something. That Sakshi which is of the nature of calmness, that gets mixed up with, I am a calm mind. That Sakshi which is always, there are no agitation, there is no other in Sakshi, that gets mixed up with these thoughts which are of agitating thoughts. So in this way, we should sit down quietly and see, how is Jivatva appearing in me? So right now, let us just discuss Jivatva, and later on, we will see what is the result of knowledge. And causal body, the main point is, I am ignorant. We don't even say it that way, but we do say that there is nothing called as consciousness. There is nothing called as Brahma. That is called ignorance. When I say the word that I don't know Brahman, that is ignorance, because of Brahman I am speaking. So this ignorance also gets superimposed in consciousness. And of course, the next level of ignorance is, I don't know I am that Brahman. First level is, I don't even know there is Brahman. Second level is, I don't know I am Brahman. So all these things are getting superimposed on Sakshi. And this is where the problem comes. There is something called as Chhatri Nyaya. In Katopanishad, there is one line Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji writes that if there are two people, one of them is holding an umbrella and other is just walking. It could be two or many people also, huh? Because one person is holding an umbrella, if somebody sees from far, everybody is walking, they get the title, people with umbrellas are walking. Means actually speaking, only one person is holding, but everybody else is said to be holding an umbrella because of one person. That is called as Chhatri Nyaya. But over here, if you see, the one who is experiencing results of action is only Buddhi. But because Buddhi is experiencing, Sakshi also gets the error that it also is an experiencer of results. Means it is affected by experiences. That mix-up happens inside. And what happens is, the word I is used for body also, it is used for mind also, and it is used for Sakshi also. So we should be very clear that is actually the result of knowledge, knowing where does this word I refer to and what is the primary meaning of I. Primary meaning of I is Sakshi, secondary meaning is Buddhi and body. So Jnani understands his I as Sakshi, and for Vyavahara, that Jnani is able to use the word I for mind also, for body also, and act according to the way it demands. Okay, this is called a Chhatri Nyaya, means Sakshi and Buddhi, both appearing together. Buddhi eats the results of action, but Sakshi also erroneously gets this title. Knowledge will just remove this confusion. This also is represented in Mundaka Upanishad when the analogy of two birds are given. So one bird is Sakshi Brahman, consciousness. And another bird is Ahankara. Here we can call it as Buddhi. Throughout the day, it is this Ahankara which will go through different results of actions, different experiences. Sometimes it will be calm, agitated, dull. Knowledge tells us that I am unaffected by any of these ups and downs of this Ahankara. And when we sit down in meditation, this is the point we should hold on to. Before starting our day, dwelling on this fact that I am ever untouched by this samsara. And more clarity we have about nature of Sakshi, more will be our conviction. And because this mix-up happens so much sometimes that we get swept away, with this entire mix-up. So we should take some time off, either morning, evening, whichever time, and just dwell on this fact. What is the nature of Sakshi and how it is different from nature of Buddhi. So Vidyananda Swamiji described the problem here. That problem belongs to these three entities which are down there, but they appear in consciousness. Now what happens inside when avarana is gone? He says, avrutautu vinashtayam bhede bhate apayati tata. When this avarana is gone, we should not have some wrong expectation of what is going to happen. Means wrong expectation from liberation. Moksha, what we say, right? When avarana is gone, it just tells us clearly the difference between what is the nature of Sakshi and what is the nature of Buddhi. Only that much. Knowing the fact that I am ever of the nature of consciousness, I was never affected by buddhi. And there are different degrees of reality, just like the desert sand is never affected by mirage water. This, Vidyaranya Swamiji says, is the main result of avarana going away. And interestingly, result is not destruction of buddhi, means non-perception of buddhi. That is not the result of knowledge, and that is not a result of moksha also. If you say I have destroyed the mirage water, then I have to go back and check my understanding. A thing which was not even there, how can I destroy it? So buddhi, when we say understanding the mithyatva of buddhi, mithyatva of ahankara, that is the result of knowledge, not non-perception of it. And at the level of buddhi, whatever has to be done will be done, but knowing that I have another nature which is ever pure, ever of the nature of bliss. Okay, that is the result of knowledge. What we call as drishyatva, right? Earlier we saw the third seer-seen pair, right? Now this is a microscopic view on that third seer-seen pair. What is the third seer-seen pair? Sakshi is drashta and buddhi or mind is drishya. It is seen. Sakshi is the seer. Now when avarana is there, even though I might have heard it, I don't see these things as distinctly different. So if you want to have a litmus test, right? Has avarana gone or not? This is the litmus test. Can we see thoughts as different from us? Not judging the nature of the thought, but just seeing it as different from us. That itself is the result of this avarana going away. Knowing clearly. And the next step is to know that thoughts are an appearance in Sakshi. They are not different. It is not two different things which is appearing. It is one thing which is appearing as two. This discussion we had when we discussed Maya topic. It is not two different things. Same thing is appearing as something else. So ignorance is gone. Gone means what? I know that I was ever of the nature of Sakshi. Ignorance cannot touch me. Ignorance belongs to Maya, and that doesn't have its own individual separate existence. And even if I use the word, I am calm, I am agitated, that jnani knows that what he is referring to is the mind. Having known his true nature, he is able to use the word I secondarily for mind also, for body also. That is what makes the difference, between jnani and ajnani. For ajnani, everything is mixed up. Body, mind. Ajnani doesn't even see them as different things. And only identity that ajnani has is with regards to body or with mind or something. But in case of jnani, they have two eyes, two aham. One is of the nature of consciousness, and second is for transactional purpose. Knowing that I am of the nature of consciousness, that jnani uses it for transaction, the second aham. Aham means I. There are two eyes. This example will help clarify this point. What is meant by ignorance of, first of all, I hope example you are clear with. There is a cloth. On that cloth, there is a crystal which is kept, clear crystal. And because you have kept it on the cloth, the color of the cloth decides how that crystal will look. So if there is a blue cloth, we see there is a blue crystal. Yellow cloth, yellow crystal, and so on. Whichever color cloth you have, the crystal appears of that color. Now, when we say ignorance about this crystal has gone away, what it means is clear understanding of the difference between nature of the crystal and nature of cloth. Means even if they are appearing together, nothing has happened to the crystal. It has not become blue, it has not become yellow, not become white, not become sattvic, not become rajasic, not become tamasic. That is the power of knowledge, understanding clearly what is our true nature. And cleaning of the crystal has been done before. Okay, actually cleaning the crystal is the role of sadhana, so that the crystal is nice and clear. In that clear crystal, knowledge takes place, where we know what is nature of consciousness, what is nature of buddhi. So we'll pause here and continue from the next idea. Now Vidyananda Swamiji is going to say what is happening outside with this avarana going away. What is the result that comes with our vision of the world? Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. There are a couple of questions that we can quickly take here. This is with regard to discussion we had last time about Ananda. It says Ananda and bliss seem to be experiential terms, therefore at odds with abhokta nature of Nirakara entity. The closest explanation I can find is in page 53 of the book, which has a line, there can never be complete happiness in finitude. But that is also an explanation of bliss only from a jiva's perspective. Why is Brahman said to be of the nature of bliss? Means whenever we use the word bliss, it seems like an experiential word, means something that we have to experience. And when we talk about Atma, we say it is abhokta, which is not an experiencer. So why do we use this word, Ananda? What does it mean? This is a limitation that Shruti has, Mother Shruti has, and even our teachers have. When they have to indicate nature of consciousness, nature of Brahma, they cannot use a word which we are not familiar with. If they use a word which is very, very rare word which we don't even know the meaning of, because whatever word we know the meaning of, that will be from this world only, right? It won't be something other than this world. So if they use some word which might be a very great word, not related to this world, we will never be able to connect with it, right? We will appreciate Brahman is of this kind, but we will not know what kind. So that is why Mother Shruti has to use words which are part of this transactional world. And through those words, we have to shift our attention to that which is beyond what is being shown, to the pointed and not to the pointer. So when we hear the word Sat, Sat means existence. Now what existence are we familiar with? Conditional existence, existence of objects, right? We say this phone exists. When there is some object and that object is, that is what we are familiar with. But Vedanta wants to point us at existence devoid of conditioning. So that is called as Sat Swarupa. Okay, that Sat from which this entire creation has come about. That is called as Sat. Now the question becomes, if there is a Sat Vastu, which is, which has become a cause of this entire creation, is it inert? Just like a clay, which is the cause of a pot, is this Sat or existence also an inert entity which has become cause of this creation? To negate that fact, another word is added, which is called as Chit. Means it is not inert, it is of the nature of existence, devoid of conditioning, and it is conscious. It is of the nature of consciousness. That is why second word comes Chit. But now you see our understanding. What Chit are we familiar with? Conditioned Chit, conditioned consciousness as this mind. Something wherever it gets reflected, this consciousness, there we say this is conscious or this is sentient. So Vedanta wants to shift our attention to that which is devoid of these conditionings. Okay, so Sat and Chit is clear. Now this entity which has become, which is of the nature of existence, which is consciousness itself, is it finite? That question also could come. There could be some entity which is of the nature of existence, which is consciousness itself, but is it a finite entity somewhere? Then comes the third word, which is called as Anantam. Anantam means it is not finite. To negate finitude, the word comes Anantam. So all words that are coming are just to negate something. Sat also, if you say, that is to negate Shunyatva. Shunyatva means there is void. That is another idea some philosophers had, that this entire creation has come from void. It says, no, there is something called as Sat. It is existing. It's of the nature of existence itself. That existence alone, it's not inert. It is of the nature of consciousness. And it is not limited. It is infinite, which is called as Anantam. Now this Anantam itself is called as Anandam. But we should not mix it up with reflected Ananda, which is of the nature of happiness that is experienced at mind level. It's a great understanding. If we even come to this point that reflected Ananda is available in the mind, it's a great understanding. And whatever sadhana we do, that helps us strengthen this conviction. I can be happy independent of objects because happiness is my nature. It is not coming from outside. But it should not leave us there. It should help us shift to our real nature, which is of the nature of, which is infinite in nature. And why do we say only infinitude is bliss? We experience this in our day-to-day life. Whenever things are finite, that is where sorrow comes. If I am having a very nice vacation, let us say, right, somewhere I have gone, Alaska, very nice cruise is there, everything is good. But that experience has to come to an end. And just because it has come to an end, that gives me sorrow. All experiences that we have are with this, time bondage or time limit that is available. And later on, different insight is given that even if we go to Swarga Loka, this duration of experience is longer. Several years a jiva can live in Swarga, but even that has limitation. After punyas are over, that jiva is sent back. So in that way, limitation becomes cause of sorrow. Vedanta says, let us look at our true nature, which is always free from all limitations, which is infinite in nature. That is what we call as Ananda Swarupa. Okay. Is Maya also Antakarana? Why is it only causal body? Antakarana is result of Maya. So when we say Maya, it is fundamentally referring to causal body. Maya Karya or Avidya Karya is Buddhi. Because I don't know myself as consciousness, Vikshepa Shakti has projected this Buddhi and everything else. So that is this. One is causal body, which is Maya. Everything else is Maya Karya. Secondarily, we call it as Maya only. That is why we saw different definitions of, or um, elaborations of Maya. Whatever hides and misguides, we call it as Maya. So Maya Karya also is secondarily called as Maya. This world also sometimes we say is Maya. So that is how we should understand. Okay, it is Maya Karya. Is Jivatva same as Ahankara? Yes. Whenever the word Ahankara is used, Ahankara is the one who is owning up this Jivatva. Sanghata Abhimani. Whatever happens to any part of this Jiva, Ahankara says, I am doing it. That is why secondarily it is called as Jiva or Jivatva. Is causal body feeding Antahkarana? I cannot fully understand difference between the two. It is not feeding in that sense. Whatever impressions are there in the subtle body, all those tendencies need to have a place from where they have emerged. New tendencies that we are adding, that is different, but there has to be some primary blueprint from which body we have to get, that is decided, what kind of mind we left with in the previous janma, that is decided. So like that, different things get stored in this causal body. So in that way it is feeding. Sometimes you should ask this question, where do sanchita karmas get stored? Jiva's sanchita karma which is there, where does it get stored? Is it somewhere outside in some place or in some loka? It is said it gets stored in Karana Sharira. From Karana Sharira only, Prarabdha karma is brought out, and entire Sanchita karma account is stored there. And when knowledge takes place, this Karana Sharira is burnt. Okay, ignorance is taken away, and all karmas, Sanchita karmas which were there, they are burnt. Prarabdha karma is not burnt because it has already started giving result. It is known as mithya. Prarabdha karma is known as badhita. Same idea, huh? Because this jnani now knows I am of the nature of sakshi. Whatever happens at the level of body does not affect me. So it's an appearance. That is why badha has happened. Badha means negation. Okay. All right. Other questions I'll take in the next session. Okay. Hari Om, everyone. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namah. Hari Om.